Hi guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another retro RPG. And this one's going to be a bit different. Firstly, because it's not a book. Secondly, because it's coming out on Friday. And thirdly, because it's just something I kind of stumbled on. You see, I was going through some stuff the other day, clearing out a cupboard, getting rid of some old CDs. And I found a large box filled with old PC CDs, old music CDs, stuff from the 90s. And sitting at the top of the box was this. The TSR Forgotten Realms Advanced Dungeons & Dragons interactive map. And I thought that might be quite interesting to have a look through. It's taken me a bit of effort to get it working because unfortunately my modern computer that I do most of my work on doesn't have a media drive, so there was no way I could put a CD into it. But I've got my old laptop, so I've stuck it in that and managed to install it, and we'll have a wee look. So this is the Forgotten Realms Interactive Atlas. As I said, it came out in 1999, and the big thing that you've got to remember about mapping and atlases, or electronic atlases from that time, is that Google Maps did not exist. You see, it's created a paradigm, a method of user interface that we're all used to. The way that you use the scroll wheel to zoom in, that you can drag the map around, and that basically the maps don't have edges. You just keep scrolling. Well, that did not exist at the time when this came out. So what we have here is a map where you click to magnify, and then to scroll around you need to use the scroll bars at the edge of the screen here. So we grab them, we drag them along to where we want to go, and it redraws everything quite slowly. So if we try and go up here, we should be getting the Sea of Swords and the Sword Coast. We can zoom in more. But as you can see, there's no real details coming up. Because if I zoom back out slightly, you can see the purple lines around these. And these are individual maps. So if I want to go and look at a particular area, the Sea of Swords is a common part of the Forgotten Realms to look at. We can zoom in, and again it splits it into two, but we're starting to get some details here. So if we zoom in slightly, we can see there's some details. But again, it's not terribly detailed. But if we click into the top map, we get two further maps split down the middle. But these are more detailed than the last. Then we click again, and we get certain areas like the Moonshea Isles and the Nalantha, which have their own maps. But you can see the Sword Coast if we zoom in. We're starting to get places which are highlighted in purple. Because what this isn't really an overall map where you can zoom down to city level or town level. It's basically a set of hyperlinked maps, probably selected from all of the source books, all of the adventures which TSR had out at the time. Because if we click on Daggerford up here, we can see we get a lovely map of Daggerford. It's very detailed. We can zoom in and comes up absolutely gorgeous, pixel perfect detail. But all of these are just numbered because we need the key at the side to discover what everything is. We've got the key for all the buildings here. Now, these are not things that you click on and you discover. You have to look up the numbers. So this was probably printed in a source book somewhere. Now if I go back up, we can see, zooming in again because it goes to the maximum reset, it is a very clunky interface. Go right up to the top here, we can see the very next thing next to Daggerford, and it's a dungeon. And you can click to go down to the different layers of the dungeon and explore the dungeon. But it's not a town. It's just a map out of probably an adventure. And we go back up. Now, I probably should go through some of the functions here, because we obviously have zoom here. We can go backwards and forwards through the pages. We can go up to the map above. And we have this nice globe option, which is a bit more like Google Maps. So if I click on this, and it loads up a globe, and I can drag my way around it. Now, Unfortunately, it doesn't update very fast, and it only seems to do half the pixels at one time, so we're getting a very blurry image. And if we zoom in on the map, we see it's massively pixelated, because you need to zoom out, and it will eventually load in more detail. It takes its time, but that's us at the maximum magnification. And while we can make out some details here, I can see, for example, Thesk, but that's only because I know that that's where Thesk is, with the Great Dale above it, because I played in a Forgotten Realms campaign where that's where we were based, in the Great Dale. But I couldn't tell you what the countries over here are. That writing is just way too small for it to be any use. It also has the option to go to basically a gradient map showing how high and low the land is, the rocks and mountains. Unfortunately, it doesn't match up. So if we click between them, we can see the islands out at sea are jumping between position. The two maps are not identical. They're close, but they are not identical. But that's a bit more like a map we would use. But unfortunately, it's pretty useless. It updates so slowly, the information's not readable on it, and you can't click through to the more detailed maps. So basically, you're forced to use this map. Now, the functions across the top here, if we open up the File menu, we can see that it's showing the last maps that were opened up, because they are just all separate map files hyperlinked together. We've got View, where we can select layers. So we can see you've got options for relief contours, roads, structures. You can turn all these on and off, vegetation, water, rivers, so you can get a map as detailed or as undetailed as you want. We have a grid, so you can see measurement, and various zoom functions and pan functions. We have the go, so we can go forward and back, but the controls are obviously on the page. We have information. Well, the info tab's actually one of the more useful ones. First option's map notes. Well, I'm afraid it's not really that useful at all. It just has a few notes on there that the creators have added, but there's not really any details at all. But we've got distance. So if we're wanting to measure the distance between Daggerford and Amn, then we click and it tells us that the distance is 979. Doesn't tell us 979 what? Is that 979 days it will take? Is that miles? I don't really remember. Is that Forgotten Realms miles? Is it kilometres? We've got a scale in miles on the side here, which looks like it could be. If that's 405, it doesn't look quite right. Looks like it should be further, but who can tell? And otherwise, we've got length along, so we can measure the length along a piece of coastline. It highlights an entire continent, and then you click 2 points on the coastline, and it measures the route along the edge, which is quite useful. We can get the coordinates, and we can get the area, so we can work out the area that something covers. What's the area of the Anarok Desert? Which is quite nice. And then we've got some help functions. Now, zooming back up to the top level, we can see that the map is now quite out of date, because Toril, the world where the Forgotten Realms is set, has been fleshed out a bit more. This area of the continent up here has been detailed. If you go online and look at maps, you can see they're far more detailed. And all these terra incognita continents and islands now have actually been named, so you can find out a lot more about them, even though even now they're still pretty bare. Now, the map covers Faerun, so the Forgotten Realms. It's got Maztica, which was the second edition Aztec Adventures type thing, sort of South American cultures. We've got Zakara, which was the Arabian Adventures of al-quadim. And we've got Kara-tur, which is the Oriental Adventures land. So all of these are on the world of Toril. along with Forgotten Realms. And they are detailed to some level. We can go into Zakara and we can see as it draws up in some fairly decent detail. Can we go in further? It doesn't look like there's anything clickable on that map. But there are some very detailed maps in here. There's a lot of information. So I can see this being quite useful to a games master. If we click through, there's individual countries. We can click on Cormia. Got Evenstar, a nice detailed map there. Going back to Cormia. Immersea. You know, you can see how this would be useful to a games master, but it is a very clunky interface. Let me show one of the massive examples I found of it, because the areas I'm very familiar with are the Sword Coast. So, as I said, we click on Daggerford. So the players are visiting there. But they want to go up to Waterdeep, which is the next town north. So how do we do that? Well, we go back to this map, and can we click off the north of it? No, it just zooms up. And we go up and up to the main map, and then we click into the northerly area, then we click down to this area, and then we've got Waterdeep here, which we load up. And Waterdeep itself, you know, it's a lovely detailed city, but the areas of it, if I go back up to the sort of north of the city, all of the purple lines here are different areas you can zoom into. So you can see a very detailed map of a street here, but the only way to get to the next street is to remember which one you clicked on and click on the next area and hopefully get the right one and not miss, as apparently I just did. And you can get lovely detailed maps, but it's really difficult to flick between them. Anyway, I think I've whittled on about this for quite long enough. Thank you very, very much for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment below, as it does me massive favours with the YouTube algorithm. But, as always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.